Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Political Excess. Got another deep dive into an upcoming governor's election. This time, let's take a look at Wisconsin. I already did a deep dive into the U.S. Senate election, so take a look at that video if you'd like. But let's get on Ballotpedia and start with a little bit of background. The incumbent governor is Democrat Tony Evers. He's running for re-election to a second term. 4 years ago, when he first won election, he won with about 49.5% of the vote, which was just over a 1-point margin. Prior to serving as governor, he did serve as the Superintendent of Public Instruction, which is a statewide elected office. His opponent on the Republican side is Tim Michels. Michels is a businessman, and he was the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate back in 2004, and he lost with 44% of the vote. So let's go back and take a look at their primaries. Well, Tony Evers was essentially unopposed, getting almost 100% of the vote, and Tim Michels did have a competitive primary. He got 47.1% of the vote over former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch, who got 42.5%. And there was also a Libertarian candidate in this race. I believe she will still appear on the ballot. However, she has withdrawn from the race and endorsed Tim Michels. So let's go down here and see how this race is rated. All three sites, Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Larry Sabato, have it as a toss-up. My own rating has been Tilt Republican. I've long thought this will be a very close race. Tony Evers is not particularly popular. I'm not really sure how strong of a candidate Tim Michels is. He did win most of the counties in his primary, and most of the national issues do favor Republicans. I think his personality comes off as a little stiff. He does have the abortion issue to contend with, and Tony Evers is the incumbent. So the polls have been tight, and it's certainly possible they have undersampled Republicans a little bit. So all things considered, I do give a slight edge to Tim Michels. So let's move along here and take a look at the campaign finance. And they both have raised a good amount, but Tony Evers does have a clear advantage. So let's move down here and take a look at how the counties are trending on a presidential level. I did look at this on my U.S. Senate deep dive, so I will go a little quicker through this. And I'll just mention the top line number here, that 37.3% of the population lives in 14 counties that voted for Joe Biden 2 years ago. And another 62.7% of the population lives in 58 counties that voted for Donald Trump last time. And we can go down here and take a look at some of these counties. And the thing to keep in mind is the shading does not indicate margins, that just indicates if they voted for the Democrat or the Republican for president in the last 1, 2, or 3 elections. So the most populous county is Milwaukee, that voted for Joe Biden with 69% of the vote. And that is higher than it was in the 2 previous elections. And the other deep blue county is Dane County, that even voted by a wider margin for Joe Biden last time with over 75% of the vote. So these 2 counties are key for the Democrats to run up if they want to drown out all the rest of the red counties. And speaking of those red counties, some of them are light red. And those are counties that voted for Barack Obama in 2012, but then flipped and voted for Donald Trump both times. And if you take a look at the margins in any of these counties, you can see that most of them have definitely lurched to the right. The solid red counties have also moved to the right, but they were already supporting the Republican for president before Donald Trump. So there is some vote left here in these light red counties, and probably a little bit left in the dark red counties for Republicans to squeeze out so they can win statewide. And they'd need to get every little bit they can, because those 2 deep blue counties with all the population in them, they are trending toward the left. And even 1 or 2% change in those counties can outweigh a lot of this red vote. Now the suburban WOW counties around Milwaukee, which is Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington, there's going to be focus on those counties to see which way they're going to trend, and Republicans would be concerned if they actually start seriously trending toward the left. In the southeast part of the state, Racine and Kenosha counties, those are also some bellwether-type counties, and Tim Michels is definitely going to want to win those if he wants to pick up this governorship. Let's go back to the 2018 county map to see how Tony Evers did when he first won election. So as you can see, there's a lot of red counties here. Democrats do have a few scattered around the state, 3 up in northern Wisconsin, and there are a lot in the southwest part of the state that's mostly referred to as the driftless area. But if we click over here, we can take a look at the shading that will indicate the margins. And all of a sudden, a lot of those red counties become a lot less red, and those blue counties in the southwest part of the state become a lot less blue. Dane County is still deep blue, as well as Milwaukee County. Margins are slightly under what they were for president 2 years ago, and Tony Evers was able to win Kenosha County, but not Racine County. So feel free to take a look at any of the other margins if you'd like. But let's move along to their YouTube channels and see what they've got. Here is Tony Evers' channel. He has pretty much all ads on here and a few other related things to his campaign. And here is Tim Michels' channel. He mostly has ads himself and a couple other things related to his campaign. And we could also look at their official campaign websites. Here is Tony Evers' site. If you want to see where he stands on the issues, take a look at his events or donate to his campaign. And here is Tim Michels' channel. If you want to see where he stands on the issues, take a look at his news or support his campaign. And how about any debates? Well, there was one debate, and that's all we're going to get. Here it is on C-SPAN. The link will be down below in the description. I did watch this debate, and it's more or less what you'd expect from a debate. It probably didn't change much, but it does give the voters an opportunity to see both of these candidates in action on stage and get a better feel for them. All the usual topics were brought up and the standard attacks were levied. So let's move over to Wikipedia and take a look at the endorsements. Here are Tony Evers' endorsements. He has the Barack Obama endorsement. And down here are Tim Michels' endorsements, and he has that Donald Trump endorsement. And how about the polling? Well, right now in Real Clear Politics, it's actually a tied race, 47.8 apiece on 538. Tony Evers is ahead 0.4%. And let's go down here and take a look at the individual polls. Patriot polling I'm not really familiar with. Some of these sources you want to put more or less weight on, but it does show you the sample size right next to the date. And of course you can click on each individual poll. A lot of them do have crosstabs, but if you don't want to look through all that, this is a very close race. Tim Michels is leading in some of these polls, and Tony Evers is leading in some other polls. Most of them are within 2 to 3 points one way or the other. I think whoever wins this race, it's not really going to be a shock. There also might be concern about Republicans being undersampled. That is a possibility, but it's hard to bank on something like that. But we can compare these polls to how they stacked up 4 years ago, back in 2018. And in that race, Tony Evers got 49.5% of the vote. Scott Walker got about 48.5%. And some of these polls are kind of a mixed bag, but it does appear they underestimated Scott Walker by a little bit, especially the ones from a little bit farther back. The Emerson College poll got the right result, but they were a little bit over on Tony Evers and a little bit under on Scott Walker. And finally, we can get on predicted and take a look at the market. And there, the Republican Party, Tim Michels, he's at 67 cents. Democratic Party, Tony Evers is at 37 cents. And if we look at the graph down here, we could see that it was pretty close. Tony Evers did have a lead a couple months ago, but over this past month, Tim Michels has opened up a clear advantage. So what is the conclusion here? Well, I think Tim Michels has a slight edge, but Tony Evers might hang on. It's definitely a possibility. I think having a divided government might be appealing to some of these Wisconsin voters, especially with the abortion issue swaying some voters. They would want a check on the Republican-controlled legislature. So that is one thing to consider. On the other hand, a lot of the national issues, the usual ones like crime and inflation, even some of the pandemic response, that generally is going to favor someone like Tim Michels, the challenger. As far as personality goes, Tony Evers is very bland in my opinion. There is nothing exciting about him whatsoever, and that might be a strength for some voters. But with an unpopular president in office and a not-so-popular governor in office, if Tim Michels does not have any significant missteps, I would think he would be able to edge out a win. It would be narrow, probably by under 1 point. He has time to actually win this thing by 2 or 3 or 4 points. But if the momentum shifts the other way, Tony Evers could hold on by 1 or 2 points. If he ends up squeaking out a win by 0.2%, I'm not going to be stunned. But anyway, that is a bit of a deep dive into this Wisconsin governor's election. Let me know in the comments, are you following this race, and what do you think the margin will be? Let me know down below, and if you enjoyed this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.